the father of my children, by the Descendant. Cupcake stood there, staring at the gentle curves of the stranger's body. There was a mare in Circuit Cube Corner, and Cupcake could not look away from the scene that was playing out before her startled eyes, gazing across the interloper as nightmares began to pour through her mind. Less than an hour before, she had delivered her children to the house of her mother, the house that Carrot's mother had come in to live in as well. The two old friends had come to share the fine home, the one her father, now departed, had built for his family. There, in that happy memory-filled space, the old mares sheltered in one another as their years grew on them. As all grandparents do, they complained of how quickly pumpkin cake were growing, and how it seemed they never got to see their grandchildren. This was, of course, despite seeing them at least twice a week.
"Oh, well, if you'd like to watch them for a bit,"
Cupcake said, and in an instant she found herself with a free afternoon. She had returned to Sugar Cube Corner, slipping in the back door quietly, hoping to find some alone time to work on a project. She had begun something small, something trite, but something she felt a warm desire to do. Piggy was gone, off on another grand adventure to save Equestria from some ancient, nameless, unspeakable evil or something. With all three of her children out of the house, that left only Carrot to contend with. She expected to be gone all day, and Carrot had taken upon himself to bear the burden of running the shop alone. But, with the children being attended by their mothers, she had accomplished all of her other tasks quickly. Now she had returned to their bakery, their home, in hopes of finding some time to work with their little vanity project. That had changed when she saw the young Pegasus mare. Cupcake had attempted to cross the bakery on silent hooves, and had been about to surprise her husband, when she saw the beautiful, sprightly filly. It was no surprise that there was a customer in the bakery, though by this time of the morning most of the regulars had already come and gone. The sight of a single patron could not have caused her any alarm, but it did. Did because of the little motions that the mare made, the timid sway of her body, the darting look in her eyes, and the slight blush that sat upon her features. Cupcake saw them all, and knew what they meant. Anything I can help you with, miss?" came her husband's voice, the dearly familiar tone lifting around the glass cases, ringing on the air. "You've been looking for quite a while now. I'm happy to make something up for you, if there's something special you like."
"Oh, something special?"
giggled the mare. Her voice was beautiful, and it was filled with an emotion that made Cupcake jump in alarm. She fought to keep her host quiet as she backed away from the saloon doors, leaving them open, the space between the kitchen and shop lying unobstructed. Cupcake's eyes went to the shining surface of the ovens. There she saw the perfect lines of the filly's body, saw her perfect colors, her perfect eyes. The older mare gasped. Her hoof came onto her mouth, and the nightmares found her. She recognized the undercurrent in the mare's voice, the small tone that was hidden within. It was something that any mare would recognize, a tone that she had spoken with back in those days when Carrot was not yet her husband. She had spoken to her special sun pony, her Carrot, with that tone in the courting days. She had used it when they sat on the mill pond, watching the water wheel go round and round as they touched faces to one another, as they gently drew their muzzles close to another. Yes, she recognized the tone the young mare was using. She had used it too, long ago. The filly was flirting. The filly was flirting with her husband. Cupcake took another step back, hiding herself against the cupboards. The mare's voice met her again, the sound sweet and small. Even her voice was perfect. Cupcake looked back into the reflective surface of the ovens, the mare's lines and curves once more meeting her eyes.
"Oh, well, if you're asking,"
the mare said in a giggle.
"Well, there's something I'd like,"
she continued, her voice growing softer. A new, softer blush went across the young mare's face. Cupcake catching it in a reflection. "Just say the word, miss, and I'll be happy to make you a batch of whatever you're looking for." Carrot answered in his trademark tone. "What would you like?" The young mare gave another giggle, then looked away sheepishly. She placed the back of her hoof to her face, as though she were trying to hide it.
"Well, what I like is—"
the Pegasus began, her voice failing away, becoming faint as some indecipherable words fell from them. Cupcake recognized the anxiety in the filly's voice. Her voice had been the same once, filled with that awkward tension. Her voice had once made these sounds, the sounds of an admission about to be made. The young mare's voice rose again. It was weak, struggling to make the words.
Well, what I like is, well,
Cupcake took a big breath and pressed herself against the cupboard that much more, her eyes still on the blushing, trembling figure of the flawless filly in the reflection. Miss? Karen asked.
you!
The young mare blurted.
I liked you.
The most awkward silence fell around the bakery. The ticking of the cuckoo clock stood out, and the passing ponies outside the window became stark in relief. Miss? Karen answered.
I've been seeing you around for a while, and I think you're cute.
The filly answered, her body giving a shake. Cupcake shuddered through her breath.
I've seen you with those cute little foals. Are they your nieces and nephew? I can't help but think of how mature you look with them, and how gentle you are with them, and how nice you are to every pony. How handsome.
The mare continued, barely pausing for her breath as she poured through her omission.
And I can't help but be attracted to that.
Cupcake's eyes went back to the reflection, catching across the young mare. Her breath caught again, and she knew whither this was leading. Her heart thudded in her chest.
So I was, oh my, I was hoping that maybe we could go out sometime.
The mare said, her voice dropping away in uncertainty. Oh, well, oh my gosh, Kara stammered. Miss, I'm quite flattered. I really am. But, you see, those are my faults, you see. I'm probably twice your age, maybe more. I'm happily married. There was a squeak, and suddenly a brighter blush reflected in the oven door, covering the Pegasus coat with a noticeable red. Yes, miss, Carrot replied, the slightest tickles voice. I'm happily married to a wonderful mare. My wife is just out for today, but as I said, I'm married.
Oh dear,
Cried the filly, embarrassment erupting in her voice.
oh dear.
She repeated, her worry evident as she ran her host through the brilliant tones of her mane. In the kitchen, Cupcake watched the mare blush. In an instant, she felt her fears washing out of her, replaced by pity for the charming filly. A mare that made quite a simple error.
Poor girl,
she thought, realizing the anxiety that must now be running through the Pegasus.
the poor thing.
Cupcake thought, raising her hope to cover her smile, needlessly writing her sigh of relief.
The poor little dearie, the poor. Does it matter?
As soon as the words were spoken, new nightmares flashed through Cupcake. Her ears covered up, scouting for danger like a wild horse, searching through the cupboards and display cases for the single, potent danger that the words had presented. She could have not just heard the mare just say,
Does that matter?
The Pegasus mare repeated, and soon after there came the soft sound of delicate hoofballs, the filly moving that much closer to Carrot. Cupcake startled, and in the voice she heard more than just the innocent flirting of a filly starting a crush. No, there was much more now. Now there were the sultry tones of a mare that wanted something much, much more from Cupcake's husband. Miss? Cupcake asked, his tone both polite and alarmed.
Well,
The mare said, lingering across the word, adding something to it.
at least we can be honest now. No need for all the fluff. I'll start.
Cupcake's heart thudded in her chest, and she pressed harder against the cupboard, using the weight to keep her from calling out.
Maybe I like the idea of being with an older stallion. Maybe I really like thinking about how it feels to spend time with a, well, mature stallion,
Sang the mare.
a real stallion, like you, not another grunting colt.
The Pegasus continued.
I think I like a stallion, one who knows how to treat a mare, one who's had a couple of decades of practice.
The mare's voice changed. Her voice had become covetous, desirous, seductive. Cupcake could hear each little hoof fall, each little toss of the silken hairs of the mare's mane. As that voice fell around the shop, Cupcake's eyes went back to the oven door. back to the image of the seductress who paraded her faultless lines in front of Carrot, who presented the elegant, refined sweep of her body to the stallion.
I have rules against being with a married stallion, but hey, rules are made to be broken, right? I think it would be nice of you to let me have a little taste,
The mare said, painting longing into her tones.
'cause I'm a little hungry right now.
Cupcake's hoof went back to her mouth as he pressed herself closer to the cupboards once more. Jezebel! Adulteress! Temptress! Hussy! The words screamed around the Cupcake's mind, making her bite down on her hoof. A part of her wished to burst into the shop, pounce upon the Pegasus, give her the thrashing she so absurdly deserved, and then toss the harlot into the street. But all that Cupcake's body did was press itself against the cupboard that much harder, and her teeth drew deeper into her foreleg. The Pegasus was beautiful, perfect. Her body presented all the better traits of her race. She was light, graceful, and her frame set the strength of the Pegasi, and the sense of living for the moment that hovered around the race showed itself fully in the mare. The Pegasus was young, little more than a filly. Here was a mare in those bright years when her body could back up her desires instantly. The mare was everything Cupcake had once been, everything she had never been. The Pegasus was firm, svelte, and beautiful in every sense of the word. She was young, eager, tight. Cupcake's eyes watered, and as she watched the reflection, she knew that her own body was that of a mother, not a lover. And even in those days long ago, when she first looked into her Carrot's eyes, she had only ever been, well, round. Cupcake's eyes looked across the Pegasus, across this temptress, this mare that was doing everything right, everything she needed to do so to claim her prize.
Carrot,
Her name flashed through Cupcake's mind.
Carrot. Did you say your wife was gone for the day?
The mare continued, her voice now full of enticement and temptation.
That's good. The little ones are out too? That's good. That's very good.
A little strut appeared in the reflection. Cupcake's eyes watered.
I bet you've been married for a great long time then, huh?
The mare asked, drawing herself that much closer to the stunned, silent stallion who sat behind the counter.
You must be very good to her. You must know what a mare likes if you kept her interested for so long.
There was a wispy sound, the noise of a tail being drawn across a pony. Tears rolled out of Cupcake's eyes as the reflection showed the mare's tail falling off the stallion, off her husband's nose, just out of her view.
Can't you take your noon break just an hour early? Just flip the sign right now. For me, please.
The mare asked, painting a pout on her face and whimper into her voice.
Wouldn't that be nice? Putting a smile on the customer's face. A grown stallion like you, taking care of a young mare like me. I like that.
A devious smirk fell across the Pegasus, and for an instant she coolly panned her eyes across the shop. Her body was slightly turned, the mare covering enough just to let Carrot see reaction as she shifted her hips back and forth.
And I bet, after so many years with one mare, well,
cooed the young Pegasus.
Maybe you're ready to taste of something a little exotic.
The Pegasus' eyes lit up, and with a few more shakes of her hips, her tail began to shift, and then lift. Cupcake's eyes dove down to the floor, her bold body trembling as her teeth dug deeper into her foreleg. For a race of creatures that generally go about unclothed, a glimpse of something as banal and trite as various bits of anatomy is without context, no more so than seeing eyes, ears, or the flash of a tongue. This is something that clothed races sometimes struggled with. Attraction, desire. For the ponies, these were based on emotional investments in an individual. At this moment, Cupcake's investment, her long years of life with Carrot, lay stark and bare before her. The temptress signaled her wishes to the unseen stallion, the seductress using her charms to garner her prize. The Pegasus, the one seeking to claim Carrot for her purposes, displayed her desires in full. Thus, the competition began. The power of promises and love against those of animal desires and seduction.
Carrot.
The name, the precious name shot through Cupcake's mind once more.
Carrot!
Cupcake fought to lift her eyes. When she finally did, the reflection on the oven door revealed the pegasus lowering her tail, so it once more lay upon the sashaying hips. Cupcake heard the light hose of the filly, saw her reflection bend in the oven door as he walked towards the stairwell.
No pony ever needs to know,
The mare said, her tone once more longing, falling into that painted face of innocence.
She'll never find out. I just want to know what it would be like to be with you, please.
Condemnation screamed through the mind of the older mare.
Can we go upstairs?
The pegasus asked, her tone flawless, plea perfect. It was all carefully measured, all immaculately crafted to capture the stallion that stood unseen in a room beyond.
Can we go upstairs, please? No pony ever needs to know. She'll never know.
Cupcake's legs went weak. Her head swam and body shook. Her eyes filled with tears.
You deserve a treat. Please, can't you be my stallion? Just for an hour or so.
The pegasus begged, turning her head from the stairwell, capturing Carrot in her eyes once more.
Please, won't you take me upstairs? Please.
There had been many times in her life when Cupcake had felt individual moments stretched out into imperceptible lengths of time. She had felt a few seconds, or mere instants stretched out into minutes, hours, seeming to consume days. She had felt it happen when Carrot had kissed her for the first time. He had drawn her into a kiss beneath the canopy of what would become this store as the rain fell around them. That moment could not have lasted long enough. She had felt a terrifying moment stretched into infinity when a broken, bleeding Carrot had stared back into her father's enraged eyes, demanding the chance to prove to the older stallion that he was worthy of Cupcake. He had felt a perfect, wonderful moment for the first time when she looked up into his eyes, while he whispered, "I love you," and the pleasure washed through her. She begged that moment would never end. She had felt a moment of worry and fear stretch ever longer, as he stretched crying on the table in the fertility clinic. She had felt a moment of uncertainty stretch when her foals left her body, waiting for the instant when they withdrew their breaths for the first time. This moment, though, this horrible, painful, awful moment, it lingered. The mare's offer stood out around the bakery, catching on the display cases, falling across the floor, buffeting across the cupcakes and pies.
Cut!
The dear name strove through Cupcake's mind. Images of their lives together flew through her, and the horrible, awful moment drew on and on. Her mind screamed his name again, and she bit harder upon her foreleg, the pain racing through her.
Carrot! Carrot!
No! The moment ended, and the stallion's single words sounded out around the bakery in a ring of clarity, as certain and powerful as the breaking dawn. No! Carrot Cake replied. I'm sorry, miss, but I love my wife. In the kitchen, Cupcake dared to begin to breathe again. She forced her leg out through her clenched teeth, made it slide gently to the ground as her body continued to shake. As she tried to force herself to calm, she focused on her husband's words, on the words of her stallion. Her Carrot. Her Carrot. Miss, Carrot continued, voice cool and tempered, I won't lie to her. Maybe she would never find out. Probably wouldn't. But I know, you see. I know. And I'd never be able to look in her eyes again. I'm sorry, but I will not risk hurting her. I won't lie to her like this.
Oh?
The mare's voice betrayed some shock. Had a stallion just escaped her wilds? I promised her, you see. I love her, Carrot concluded. I won't do it. I won't do that to her. To my family.
Oh?
The Pegasus said, so strength returning to her words.
I see.
The light hooves of the Pegasus mare turned once more, and now she faced the door. Outside, ponies went past Sugar Cube Corner, unaware of the drama that had just played out within.
Like I said,
The mare said, continued, tossing her mane,
it's against my rules to try to be with a married stallion, but it seemed like that was the right thing to do, seeing as you're such a great dad. Mares find that attractive, you know, that a stallion cares for his children, even if they might not be his, in the strictest sense of the word.
Miss, Carrot said, still maintaining his cool, even tone. Cupcake saw what the mare was doing, that the Pegasus was playing her last card. No new fears arose in Cupcake. She knew her Carrot was already berating herself for even thinking that he entertained a stranger of an offer. What moved through the Earth Party now was sadness. The Pegasus was evoking the little rumors that flew around her family, using the gossip against him, trying to find a weakness. It was an accusation the Carrot had dealt with in silence, had dealt with through his faith in her. His faith in her. Cupcake's eyes started toward the office, momentarily fixating on her project in the room beyond.
It's kind of unusual for two Earth ponies to have a Pegasus colt and a unicorn filly, huh?
The young Pegasus said in a playful tone, revealing her knowledge of the mare that lived in his home.
Maybe she hasn't been as, well, faithful to you as you've been to her, maybe. That has to have crossed your mind,
The Pegasus said, dropping back into her seductive tone.
Turnabout is fair play, right? I'm more than willing to help you get it off your chest. Come on, stallion up. She doesn't need to know. There has to be some doubt in your mind, and it's only fair.
Cupcake bit her lip. Miss, Carrot answered, his voice firm and unwavering. I don't appreciate you saying such things about my wife. I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave my shop. The ring of a glass jar coming open was followed by the sound of a paper bag unfolding. Carrot's hooves sounded across the wooden floors, and for the first time in those desperate minutes he entered the bakery, Cupcake could see the amber coat of her husband reflected in the oven door. His head bowed down, placing a bag on the display case next to the mare. The Pegasus looked confused, and perhaps a touch defeated, as Carrot lifted his face from the little peace offering. For your trouble, miss. Cupcake could not see it from where she stood, but as the mare's head disappeared toward the bags, she imagined the filly extending her tongue, slowly lifting the bag into her perfect pouting lips. The light followed the Pegasus' hoofs, and the fluttering of wings fell the bakery. Oh, and miss? Carrot's voice climbed over the noise of the street beyond the window, and once more the mare's eyes returned to his. Please. His voice steady. Don't ever come back. For an instant, silence hung around the bakery. Soon, though, there came the familiar ring of the bell above the door, and with that the mare slowly departed, trying out into the late morning traffic that wandered up and down the main street of Ponyville. Phew! Called Carrot after a moment. Phew! Phew! It was a ridiculous sound, and at once it broke the spell of all doubt and insecurity that held sway over the bakery. All suddenly it seemed as had been, and the singing of the swallows that lived under the eaves became clearer, and the rays of light once more slammed through the kitchen and the shop. Gosh, Carrot said, slowly sauntering back to his prescribed place behind the counter. Oh my gosh! Cupcake had remained hidden, listening to the little sounds of surprise that her husband was making. She slowly lowered herself to the floor, sitting silently as the familiar sounds of Sugar Cube Corner drifted around her. She settled her eyes across the pots and pans, rolling across the pins and drawers full of baking tools of all shapes and varieties. This was the world they had built together. This was their own little realm, their own little paradise. This, Cupcake imagined, was their dominion. This was the world that she and her husband, Carrot, had built together. This was the world where Pinkie had come to find a place to explore her mark. This was the world of her babies. This was their home. A home that Carrot Cake had just defended. One that he had just protected as surely as if he'd beaten a catburger senseless, or extinguished a grease fire. That was Carrot. Her Carrot. Cupcake's eyes were still misty, and she shook a little as the unspent adrenaline drew through her. She wiped the back of her hoof across her eyes, lifting away the last of her tears. As she did, she had to keep from laughing at herself. Yes, what she had just seen was disturbing, but in the end, could she have really ever doubted the outcome? Could she have ever doubted her Carrot? Doubted him the way the others seemed to doubt her? She drew the quietest sigh she could, and then let her mind wander back to the parting shot, the last card that had been laid before her husband, and the one that had been played against his paternal instincts. Cupcake lay down fully upon the floor, once again moving as quietly as he could. She thought about what he had been through since the day their foals came into the world. She pondered the rumors and gossip that swirled around her. He had borne it bravely, and if it ever bothered him, then Carrot Cake had never said a word about it to her. Cupcake lifted her head, and then settled her eyes on the door of the den, an office just across from her. In that room sat her project, the one that she had hoped to work on this afternoon. The time seemed more right than ever to complete it, but rising to her hose would mean betraying her presence here in the bakery, and it was not time for that yet. No, it was too soon. So Cupcake sat on the floor, letting the cold of the basement below reach to her through the floor as the sun fell over her coat, through the window beyond. In the shop beyond, Carrot began to hum. His soft melody was one that she recognized. It was one of the songs that they had danced to long summers ago, one that had followed them through their lives together. As she sat there, Cupcake let the last of her emotions drift away from her. She let the feelings of anger and fear evaporate. She let Carrot's song draw away the wrath and worry. Let them get wrapped up in the notes and drift away to wherever such things go to about and die. She forgave the mare. There was no need to hold on to that. And as Carrot Cake's humming drifted around, she knew that the Pegasus had been right about one thing. He was a good stallion, one who had kept her interested all those years. But she knew it was more than the mere physical connections that the mare seemed to covet that had given rise to what they had shared. No, Cupcake thought as she raised her hoof, placing it gently over her heart. There was much more to it than that. Much more. In her heart, she hoped that the Pegasus would discover for herself one day, and with that, the perfect lines of the interloper faded from her mind. The cackles and guffaws of those who breathed the rumors drifted away, leaving only one thought in her mind. Carrot. Her Carrot remained there. His soft song continued to flit around her, and as she thought of him, her mind turned slowly toward a new destination. Carrot had kept his promise, and as such, he deserved a reward. A very, very nice reward indeed, if she had anything to say about it. A little smirk went across her face, and a special glint settled into her eyes. Yes, that sounded like a lovely idea. As the sounds of Carrot's humming brought fresh memories of being wrapped in his forelegs to her mind, Cupcake decided that sounded like a very lovely, lovely idea. It seemed like a lovely idea indeed. She stood, and then drew her back door open as silently as she could. She pressed her rear hoof against it, then gave a little kick that slanted in pace with a resounding thud. Her feigned return now announced to the bakery at large. Cupcake trotted forward to offer her husband some tender sympathies. "Hello?" Carrot called out, hearing the back door slam. "Does her snap? Is that you?" Carrot leaned forward across the counter, hoping to catch sight of the pony that just came in. A song had been through his mind, one that reminded him of time spent with his wife, and, given how the morning had gone, he felt a real need to see her. She did not disappoint, and as he watched, the familiar tones of his wife's coat and mane appeared in the doorway, leaning against the saloon doors just so. Just so. Just so.
"Oh, yes," she said. "I'm back just a touch early. The darlings are with Mom, you see."
"More than a touch early, honey bun," he said, trying to over where she stood. Soon, his nose was touching to hers, and a warm, familiar feeling of her closeness sped through him. They stood there, together, touching their muzzles together. Her breath caught in his nostrils, the sweet scent of her air filling him. His breath went to her, catching across Cupcake and filling her with his nearness. Cupcake's head lifted by fractions of an inch, and motion drew him into her further, inviting him to press his head across her cheeks and forehead as only those intimately familiar with one another can know how to do. Eventually, he drew his head along her neck, nudging her head up gently so that it rested across his withers. As her head sat there, he drew his face across her shoulders, her neck, and her back until they simply rested against each other, the two swaying together slightly in the warm rays of light that fell through Sugarcube Corner. "What are you going to do with your afternoon, Sugar Plum?" he asked, lifting his head slowly as she moved beneath him. He looked down into her rosy eyes, the wondrous, perfect, rosy eyes that he had been captivated by for decades. He drifted through them as she spoke.
"Oh, well, there's a little project I've been working on,"
she said, gazing up into him.
"And there's always a bit of work to do around here, of course."
Heh, Karen added, knowing the truth of the matter. The new nap breaks had only become that much more important as time had sped on. He had gone from a young to a middle-aged stallion. There was always something to do. Something that... Carrot was startled out of his reflection as Cupcake stirred beneath him, drawing herself out of their embrace and back into the slow motions of their nuzzle. She had begun the slow circles and lazy figure eights once more, letting him reach up into his senses. Carrot answered, taking the lead as their long-practiced intimacies told him to take control. Told him that she wished for the touch of her husband. He drew his face along hers again, earning a pleased hum for his efforts. As Carrot went back to her nose, he felt her lift into him, felt her calling for that much more, and in an instant they were once again in that wonderful place, once again sharing a kiss with the pony they loved most in the world. Lingering there, Carrot's forelegs wrapped around Cuppy, drawing her closer to him. They parted from each other slowly, the pistachio of his eyes meeting the rose of hers once more. Heh! Carrot breathed again, saddened that the working day kept them from pursuing things any further, from exploring where the warmth and fulfillment of such a simple act could take them. He lifted his hoof to her, offering to help her stand. To his utter amazement, his wife pushed him back, and then sank into his lips with a deeper kiss, one that momentarily surprised him and made him lean backwards against the force of it. He answered her, drawing his hoof through her mane as her kiss continued to leap through him. Some part of him awoke to the feeling of a great emotion sitting behind the cherished eyes of his wife, eyes that sparkled briefly before returning to yet another kiss. Carrot Cake tumbled, losing his balance as Cuppy pressed against him deeper, rolling onto his back. Carrot Cake found herself quite a spectacle, no doubt embarrassing the tarts and eclairs to no end. He didn't care. He couldn't. Not with the dearest mare to ever enter his life springing upon him, suddenly peppering his face with kisses like he was an awkward filly with her first love. He could think of nothing else. He could only hear her giggling, feel her running her face across his chest, pressing herself into the place in the world where he knew she was the happiness. "Oh, my, honey bun," he said, nuzzling her as he wrapped her in his forelegs once again. She lifted her head, settling her eyes into his.
"Oh, Carrot,"
she said, releasing a happy sigh.
"Oh, Carrot, I love you."
"I love you too, Ginger Snap," he said, running his chin through the swirls of her mane. "I love you so much." The floor was hard, and their bodies, no longer as forgiving as they had once been, began to berate them for lying on the wooden planks. With no small hesitancy, Cupcake lifted herself out of her husband's embrace. He drew his hoof across the length of her body as he slowly departed, as he touched her hoof to his nose, and he lay there, staring at her upside down.
"Oh, Carrot," she said, "there's so much I could be doing today, don't you know? There's just so much work I could be doing getting done."
Her soft hoof fell through the Sugarcube Corner, and as Carrot rolled onto his stomach, he watched her walk across the front door. He watched her the shift of her hips, knowing the rise and fall of her flanks, the lifts of her shoulders, and suddenly He was very, very sorry that the workday prevented. Cupcake flipped the sign on the door from open to close, and Carrot sensed that the day had just improved immensely.
Carrot,
She said, staring back at him over her shoulder.
there's a whole bunch of things I could be doing today, but what I really want is my stallion.
She walked back over to him slowly, approaching him with the same look that a tiger gives a wild piglet.
I want
My cat, she said, lowering her head once more, finding the warmth of her husband's nuzzle. Yes, Carrot decided. Today was suddenly going much, much better than he had anticipated. He touched his face to that of his wife, and then reached up from his spot on the floor to leave a small kiss on her cheek. Moving slowly, he began to trace down the length of her body, leaving a trail of kisses along her neck and shoulder before lingering his lips across her chest.
Carrot.
Cupcake whispered, her head falling to the side as the sensation of her husband's affections fell through her.
Carrot, I love you so much. You can't even begin to imagine.
Oh, Cuppy, I think I can, he said. His eyes sparkled, and the stallion totally tilted his head from one side to the other as he searched through hers. I think you love me almost as much as I love you, he said. And you know, I can imagine pretty big. Cupcake blushed as he bopped her nose, chiding him for daring to think he could possibly love her more than she loved him. It's true, he said, lifting himself onto the forelegs. I love you so much that I've come up with whole new names for you. One pony can't possibly be loved as so much, you know.
Oh, come now, Carrot,
she said, batting her eyes at him. It's true, he said, and with that, he leaned forward and laying another kiss to her lips, holding it there for a bright, shining moment before lifting his head. It's true, honey bun, he whispered, evoking the first of the pet names he had given her. Carrot's lips found the curve of her neck, touching to it just at the point where it met her shoulders, tickling her as he left a single kiss upon her coat. It's true, Ginger Snap, he whispered above her tiny giggle. I love you so much that it overflows. One name can't hold it. The stallion rose up, leaving the rigid floorboards behind. He took a step forward, then touched his lips to the hollow of her chest, supplicating himself before his love, bowing to reach the sensitive, delicate space. I love you, Sugar Plum, he breathed, leaving another kiss there. His reward was instantaneous, and as Cupcake gave a small leap, he heard her begin to make sounds that filled his heart with joy. Cupcake began to give tiny, happy jumps, each one filled with anticipation and longing, the mare chuckling and giggling as a goofy smile went across her face. She circled her husband, her legs practically prancing in place, fighting to control herself as she nestled along the length of his body. She dove beneath his nose, the gentle tones of her mane catching beneath her amber stallion, filling him with her scent. She lifted into his nuzzle, running her face along his, before lifting onto her hind legs and catching her ear in her mouth. It was an old jester, one as old as their marriage, and as she gently ran his ear through her lips, it told him many things, many wonderful, welcome things. She slowly lowered herself, brushing past it once again, letting her tail tickle his nose, then turned towards the stairs. Carrot looked up to see his mare, his Cuppy, bathed in the sunlight that fell through the window. Her tones were highlighted in the soft rays, and the light illuminated her, showing off each familiar, welcoming curve.
I want my stallion,
she said, her voice lifting to him, calling to him from the bottom of the stairs.
I want my husband. Oh, Carrot, will you come to me?
She lifted her host slowly, extending it to him through the shafts of light, her suggestion sitting before Carrot like she was an angel, offering to take him to a blessed realm. It was a startlingly accurate metaphor, at least as far as Carrot was concerned. Of course I will, Carrot, honey bun, he said, taking her offered hoof into his own, letting the familiar lightness of her forelegs settle into his. Carrot reached for her, and Cupcake replied in kind. The small sound of one more kiss fell upon the torts and pastries. With that, they gazed at one another, their host finding those of another, of her Carrot, of his Cuppy. The old stairs gave a groan, and with that, the two began to climb toward the welcoming expanse of their familiar bed beyond. They almost made it to the top of the stairs. Almost. The stairs had been groaning, but as though in embarrassed shock as they'd gone quiet, as Carrot nibbled softly on the haunches and stifles. Carrot had almost made it to the top of the stairs, but the sight of Cupcake's body lifting and falling, the sound of her happy little giggles, and the soft scent of his mare had been too much. Now, the stallion held up their progress as he teased her so.
Carrot,
She breathed, laying her head on the banister.
Carrot.
He kissed his way back up to her rear legs, placing small, gentle kisses in penance for the nibbles, apologizing for tantalizing the mare. His lips fell across her cutie mark, her stomach, withers, and shoulders. The sound of Cupcake's breathing filled the stairwell, each breath ending with a contented hum. Carrot found her neck. His lips traced the length of it slowly as her head rocked back and forth on the banister.
Oh, Carrot,
She whimpered, feeling his soft affections falling across the base of her ear.
if you don't stop that right now, we won't make it to the bedroom, you know.
Would that be so bad, Sugar Plum? He whispered, his breath falling onto her ear. Her eyes came open, and a sardonic little smirk found its way forward through the tender things that were watching through her. Carrot caught it, and a blush lifted across his face. Heh, he whispered, once more reaching for her hoof. They were older now, their bodies not quite as limber as they had once been. Cuffy's smirk told him exactly what she thought of his intimidation, and suddenly the stairs began to creak and groan, as though uttering them on. The memory of the hard wooden floor still in his bones, he guided her up to the stairs. Carrot put such ideas away from himself. Why embarrass the stairs with the great, vast continent of their bed still beckoned to be explored? Yes, that seemed like a much better idea, especially when he had a companion leaning against him lightly, one who had always gone with him such wonderful, wondrous journeys. Gummy lifted his head out of the tub. Sound carries that much better underwater, and the events transpiring on the far side of the house were being perceptibly announced, with burrowing through the iron feet of Pinky's tub. The alligator blinked, his eyes once more falling out of unison, and then laid his chin on the sub-disc. Though he did not present himself as the swiftest boat in the Delta, the hatchling was hardly a dullard. He knew what was transpiring was beyond his right to hear. Being as he was a perfectly tentatively reptile, he afforded the lovers their privacy. Besides, he had an evening of plotting world domination ahead of him, and he'd never get any nap time if he didn't lift himself out of the waters that rippled almost impeccably, bouncing in sympathy with the timbers of the second floor. The Cakes were alone in the house, and he knew the calling of beautiful names, the fevered pleas, and the emissions of deep-seated love and affection, as well as the other assorted sounds, could go on and on and on for hours. The bed was a mess, but she hardly cared. Her maid was a mess, but she hardly cared. Her husband was a mess. That she cared about. She cared about enough of that to crane her head back across the pillows, searching for his nose as he laid against him. Feeling his mare moving in his forelegs, Carrot reached his neck forward, and was rewarded with a soft kiss beneath his chin.
I love you, Carrot,
She whispered, fucking her head slowly against him, not even bothering to open her eyes. I love you, Cuppy, he answered, placing his head back above hers. I love you so much. Cupcake giggled, and then sank deeper into the crux of her husband's body. She heard him say those wonderful, beautiful words over and over during the last few hours, and she said them in reply. Said, called, screamed. It was all the same. He meant them. She meant them. And each time they had shared the words, it had cemented the connection between them. Cupcake looked at her forelegs. and wrapped them around his, pulling them closer to her so that he could feel the gentle heart beat. Carrot, sensing for her call for tiny intimacy, lifted her that much closer to the curve of his body.
This is where I'm safest, she thought. This is where I'm happiest.
The two dozed for a long while, simply listening to the breath of each other, feeling the rise and fall of the other pony's body with each easy draw of the air. The two just laid there, close to one another, sheltering in one another as the day drew on to the afternoon. She awoke from the nap as the sound of some paper rustling knocked her senses. She pulled in a deep breath, noting the cool air was falling through the bedroom that stood slightly open. She blushed at the thought that some pony might have heard something of the act, or acts, that transpired in that room. She could not truly bring herself to care. The spring air was refreshing, and she drew in a long breath, letting the breezes that refill her body. Her eyes came upon slowly, as she cast them upon the room. She focused through her happy delirium, searching the room for whatever the source of the noise could be. Her blurry gaze fell across all the old photographs and mementos of their lives together. It caught across trinkets that they had gathered in their journeys. It lingered across baby books and diaper bags. It flowed over a piece of paper that... Cupcake's eyes flashed open. She blinked twice, and there before her sat her little project, gently rippling on her nightstand. Cupcake gave a little gasp. Yes, it was her project. How had it gotten here, to their bedroom? She left it in the office downstairs, sitting on the corner of her desk, hidden beneath her ledger and accounting books. Had Carrot seen it? Had he brought it up here, passively letting her know that he knew of... Cupcake covered her mouth, stifling her call of surprise. Her mind raced. At a moment, she realized what had happened. She had brought it here. She had brought the ledger and spreadsheets upstairs as they prepared for bed, and had been working on them into the night as her husband slept at her side. All those long hours she had been working on shop business. Her little project had been right on her lap, tucked amid her invoices and receipts. She had only noticed it as she had drifted off to sleep, and had no time to retrieve it this morning as she rushed up to gather her children. Cupcake leaned forward, risking an attempt to gather herself surreptitiously, trying to find some way to hide it from her stallion. She wasn't ready yet. She didn't want him to see it yet. It wasn't done. What it said, what it revealed about her, him, their children, she wasn't ready for that yet. She leaned that much more, desperately doing her best not to wake Carrot, yet straining against his embrace. Her tongue came out the side of her mouth. Her brow furrowed as she concentrated on the piece of paper. Carrot, oblivious in his slumber to all except the parting feeling of contentment, pulled her back into his embrace, drawing a little squeak out of his mare. Cupcake gave a diminutive sigh, arched her eyebrow, and leaned once more. Her hoof waved through the air, just barely missing the piece of paper, jostling it so the pen rolled back and forth across the surface. The mare giggled at how ridiculous it was. She was straining forward, not wanting to leave Carrot's embrace, while he pulling her back in his slumber, not even aware that he was holding her place as she tried to grab hold of her endeavor. Her tongue came out again, and as she strained to both let her husband sleep and hide her little project, she found herself also having to fight from laughing out loud how bizarre it all was. She leaned forward that once more, and Carrot embraced her that much harder, unknowingly fighting to draw her back into the spot that she really hadn't wanted to leave in the first place. She felt her body rippling with laughter that she couldn't release. Unless something happened quickly, she'd probably explode with laughter and have to settle back into his forelegs. Then she had to find a way to distract him until she could hide her project. She thought, a smirk settling across her face, as all sorts of pleasant thoughts went through her mind.
Distract him then.
Fortunately, or unfortunately, something happened.
Mama!
Her ears came up as only a mother's could, rising instantaneously to where the voice of one of her children had arisen. There was a flutter of fine feathers, like wax paper wavering in the wind, and her eyes followed her ears to the window.
Mama!
To her surprise, the figure of Pound Cake quickly came into view, his bright eyes shining to her, and then slowly fell away. Cupcake blinked, trying to convince herself that it wasn't a vision. In an instant, her hoof went back over her mouth, easily hiding a smile. "Carrot," she whispered, rolling her head beneath his chin, waking her stallion.
Carrot,
She said,
watch the window.
Carrot's eyes came open. As he blinked, the stallion too heard the sounds. The flutter of tiny wings that sounded like baseball cards rattling in bike spokes. An instant later, he also saw the familiar face of his child.
Mama!
The little pegasus quickly looked into view, smiled, then slowly began to drop once more.
Papa!
Cupcake called before slipping out of the view. There was a hearty laugh, and with a single kiss falling to his wife's cheek, Carrot lifted himself out of his bed. "Oh my, honey bun," he said as he trotted to the window. "Oh my. Let's hope he doesn't make a habit of this." Carrot Cake giggled, and with a single motion swept her project under the window, the pen rattling to the bedroom floor. "Hello, my glorious son," Carrot said, catching the little pegasus.
Papa!
Called the boy, wrapping himself in his father's forelegs. Cupcake smiled as he approached, and Carrot drew Pound in through the window, as she joined them looking down to the street below. There, amid the ponies walking up and down the high street, stood Carrot's mother, Cheesecake, their daughter Pumpkin, waving her forelegs through the air in a stroller on her side.
Oh! Oh, Carrot. Oh, Cuppy.
The older mare called.
I'm so sorry, but we just remembered that Wishing Well has a doctor's appointment, and I simply had to get her there. And I didn't know they'd let me bring the darlings.
"It's okay, Mom," he called down, waving to his mother and daughter. "I'll be down in a second to unlock the door." Carrot turned, pressing Pound into his mother's forelegs. He leaned down once more, catching his son and wife in the same kiss, then was off to usher the rest of his family into Sugar Cube Corner.
Mama!
Pound called once more, wrapping himself that much tighter to his mother. Cupcake held him to her chest, running her heart through the brown mane and across the fluttering wings of this, the other most important male in her life.
"Yes, lovely," she said. "It's Mama. I'm here, and I'm so happy to see you."
She touched her nose to the top of his head, letting it sit there as the sound of new voices filled the bakery.
"Your Mama loves you very much," she thought, "and so does your Papa. Papa loves you very much, too. You have the very best Papa. Don't let anyone ever tell you any different. Don't let any pony tell you that."
Cupcake's eyes went to her pillow. Her small project sat there, unseen and undisturbed since she quickly had hidden it. She ran her face across her son's head once more, then made her decision. The afternoon had crawled on and on. They had reopened doors a few hours later, and after the children had been put down for their naps, and finally had time to rearrange things after their escapade. Carrot made his usual rounds, tending to the needs of the bakery while preparing his supplies for the next morning. Cupcake had done her share, washing some dishes and putting others away, going over ledgers and accounts. It was a practice dance, a comfortable routine, yet even as the day drew on and a few more customers arrived seeking something special to add to their evening meals, Cupcake found her mind going back upstairs. Her mind kept returning to the little project, her secret work that now sat beneath her pillow, and back into the all too quickly abandoned bedroom. Carrot had never advertised himself as being especially insightful, or talented in empathy. His mark was baking, and baking alone. Yet he had known his wife long enough to see that something was playing across his features. There was something going on beyond the shade of rose in her eyes, something that troubled him to see. He watched her motions, heard her heavy breaths, and saw how she was blinking her eyes that much more than usual. All of these were the little signs, the little flags that showed that she was not quite worried, but still had something wavering around in her thoughts. He had known his wife for decades now, learned her moods and states. He knew what her body looked like when she was upset. He knew the sounds that sat in her sigh, the ones betrayed the way her mind was flying off to other places. He knew her as only two ponies that had shared so much could know one another. He saw that she was troubled, knew her to be dealing with something small as only one who had studied another, lived with another, loved another, could know. It was to draw out that little nameless emotion Carrot approached her, stalling her as he drifted her name out over the ledgers, records, and receipts that lay scattered about the den that served as the bakery office. Sugar plum? He whispered, making her leap in surprise.
Oh, Carrot!
She cried, fingers falling up the desk as he snapped to her quiet reflection.
I was just looking over the...
She lifted her head to find him staring back at her, with concern painted across his face. Honey bun? He said, tilting his head. Is everything okay? You seem a little off. Nothing is bothering you, is it?
Well, no, it's... Oh, Carrot, no, nothing wrong. It's just that...
She began, falling through her words as she both tried to return his gaze and avoid it. Her heart chose to return it, and her body listened to the orders it was given.
Carrot,
She whispered, looking through his eyes.
There's something I've been putting off, and I think I should...
She laid her head against his and gave a long sigh, letting his closeness fill her. She gave a warm sigh and waited for her words to come.
I came back hoping to work on something. Something quite important, don't you know, and well, we got a bit distracted, didn't we?
She said, a small smile playing out across her lips. They chuckled quietly as they held each other, reflecting on the way their afternoon had been so pleasantly interrupted. Yet it had been interrupted, and not just by their love-making. The temptations that had been thrown out before Carrot Cake, and which Cupcake had witnessed, played their part as well. That instance of seduction was the reason why she knew she had to finish it now. She had to finish her project today. While the emotions sat close to the surface, she had been working on it too long, and failed to find that last little bit of something. That something would move into the work towards completion. Today, it had to be today. It had to be now. It had to be this afternoon. These few remaining hours. It had to be now, and this lingering afternoon, where her thoughts were to her husband, to her children, and the rumors.
Carrot,
She breathed, lifting her head from his.
I really need to work on that little thing. Something important.
That's fine. That's just fine, Snap, he said, pressing a few strands of her mane back into their place upon the swirl of her rosy hair. You go right ahead. I was going to watch the shop today anyhow, and the kids are there for their nap, so...
Are you sure, Carrot?
She asked, more than a little concern hidden in her voice. I'm sure, Cuppy, he said, with a little laugh. She returned his smile, and towards her stairs. To her utter surprise, he followed her, taking a few steps beside her as he made for the stairwell. Are you okay, Sugar Plum? He asked. A small shard of alarm sprang through her as she wheeled back to him. He looked at her with concern growing in her features.
Oh, yes, I'm fine. It's just something I've been meaning to do is all,
she said, looking back to him. She found him still hovering near her, shaking to know what could possibly be bothering her so. She smiled at him once more, lifted her hoof once again. Once more she heard his hooves following along, trying beside her, as though he were a little puppy instead of a grown stallion. The shop is quiet. The kids are sleeping, he said quietly. Do you want some help?
No!
She called, her voice rising in alarm. Her cry sounded around the bakery, making the glass-based jars ring in sympathy. Karen stood there dumbstruck, an expression across his face that betrayed both bewilderment and more than a little subtle hint of hurt. Both stood there, staring at one another, waiting to see if a child's cry should find its way down the stairs. After long moments, no little voices wailed from the room above. She lifted her hoof to her husband.
Oh, Carrot,
she breathed.
I'm sorry, it's just that this thing is about us, about the little darlings. It's about us. It's about something you should know.
Karen stood there, searching through her eyes, searching through them and sifting through her words. After another long moment, a small smile went across his face. All right, honey bun, he said, putting his hoof into hers. Okay, I'll get dinner on in a couple of hours. I'll wash the carrots, whatever it is. I'll give you a little piece. He began to back away, dropped her outstretched leg, when a firm tug on his hoof called him back to her.
Carrot,
she said firmly.
I love you.
I love you too, Cuppy, he said. She placed a small kiss on his nose, then made her way towards the stairs. His host followed her, but she stopped when he reached the bottom of the stairwell. She felt his eyes on her, watching her body sway as he climbed each step. She gave a little sigh, feeling the absence of his closeness, unlike when she made her way up the stairs just a few hours before. She stopped in the little bedroom of her children, moving slowly and quietly between the pegasus and unicorn, casting her gaze over each. She carefully adjusted the tiny blankets, ran her hose across them, and rubbed their backs when they stirred.
I have to do this.
She found herself adjusting Pumpkin's blanket once more. Beneath her hooves, the unicorn moved dreamily, giving a tiny yawn.
Ah, ah.
Cupcake's lips pressed to her daughter. When she felt the child calm, she slowly lifted her head, cast one more look across her babies, and then made her way out the room.
I have to do this now, the mare thought. It has to be now.
She made her way down the hallway, going back to the bedroom she had long shared with her husband. As the brilliant rays of the afternoon slid through the window, she found a piece of paper, still sitting reposed beneath her pillow where she had hidden it. She fell across the bed, holding the paper over her. She stared at the words. She gazed them, pondered them, casting long, sentimental glances across them. While another heavy sigh from her, she flipped over, then fished her hoof across the floor, searching for her missing pencil.
It has to be now,
she thought, gathering it into her hoofs. Hours flew by. The nightstand made for an awkward writing desk. The lamp now sat on the floor, and the nightstand pressed against her legs as she sat upon the edge of her bed that faced the windows. As she wrote, she could feel the tip of the pencil pressing against her marks into the antique, lacquered surface. When she erased her words, which was often, all of her little belongings within jostled and tumbled about, making a racket. She had only stood up once, to close the window when the present breeze of the afternoon had lost their pleasing touch, as the cold air had drifted across her and sent chills up her spine, making her aching back tremble with a new discomfort. Still, she made progress. Copy? Kara's voice drifted into the room, and at once Cupcake's eyes went wide. She dove down on the nightstand, gathering her project into her forelegs, hiding it from view. She looked back over her shoulder, and there she saw him standing in the doorway, his head turned to the side, the door just barely open, doing his best not to look within. I just wanted to let you know that dinner is ready, honey bun, he said in a small voice.
Oh,
she answered.
Thank you, Cat. I didn't even realize how fast. Yes, I'll be there in a bit.
I'll grab the kids, he said.
Thank you, Cat,
she answered. Is it coming along?
Yes.
A moment of silence followed, and then she slowly made her way to the door, catching a glimpse of him as her babies went bouncing along on his back, their daddy carrying him carefully down the stairs. Tears formed at the edges of her eyes. It was finished. Dinner had passed, and the children had properly scrubbed down afterwards. Together, they toiled their daily toil, finishing the tasks that were necessary to button up the bakery for the night. She had taken on the greater burden, doing her part in the part of Pinkie Pie. They could hardly protest her absence, seeing as he was off saving Equestria from some new perilous peril. Still, older bodies strayed under the added task, and it was with stiff limbs that Cupcake climbed the stairs once more. Again, she paused at the room of her children. Carrot tumbled with them, letting them climb onto his back, catching them as he slid down his frame. She leaned in on the doorframe as his voice lifted in sing-song words, her smile coasting over her children, and husband as their tiny voices lifted in peals of laughter when his tickles found them. The sound followed her as she made her way to the bedroom, once more hefting herself behind her impromptu desk as she let the pencil fly across the paper. It had grown now, and it was many papers instead of a single one. It was many papers filled with words that she had grown to detest, words that vexed her. Yes, she wrote. She wrote until the sounds of her children drifted off, and only the lullabies of her husband reached her from the hallway. She wrote until Celestia sung and had been replaced by Luna's moon, and the shades of night filled the bedroom. She wrote until her legs hurt. She wrote until it was done. She stood over her work, looking at the scarred pages. It was nothing like she imagined. It didn't seem like she would hope it would be. It wasn't good.
It has to be now,
she reminded herself. With that, she scooped the papers into her mouth. Setting the nightstand back in place, she put out the light and trotted anxiously back to the nursery, her work hanging from her lips. She peered within. 2 nightlights illuminated the room, and a kerosene lamp next to the changing table cast animal-like silhouettes across the walls, filling the room with a comforting glow. It would be bright enough to read, and that gave her some strength. Carrot's head lifted from the stacks of pillows that sat upon the floor. As her eyes adjusted, she saw the dearly familiar forms of her children nestled close to the chest of her stallion, her children occupying her favorite spot in the world. She moved closely, and soon she too lay across the pillows, her legs folded beneath her. Yet she was not so close that she could cuddle to him. She wasn't ready for that. She needed to be able to say what must be said. "Copy? Honey bun?" he whispered. "It's done? Whatever it is, do you want me to see it?" His wife placed the papers before him. There, upon the pieces of paper, lay the poem. Cupcake cleared her throat, and she began to read.
"The father of my children, by Cupcake, for her husband."
Cupcake lifted her head and smiled to him. His smile reached back for her. "Cuppy," he began, a single note of surprise hovering in the word. A glance between them told him all that was required of him to listen. Carrot settled his head on the pillows, the pistachio of his eyes ever finding her rose-colored ones as the words began to drift around the cradles, stuffed animals, and baby bottles.
"I have a secret garden that I keep apart in my happy, quiet place, and there I keep my heart. A little path runs through it, along a bubbling stream, and there is where I retreat to let my life blur with my dream. There I am safe and happy, and the sun is always bright, and when I stretch upon the grassy fen, my soul is filled with light. For me there's peace and stillness, and there's my golden house. For my garden's sights and scents filled me, and cheerily lend me their power. Deep are the garden's foundations, hewn and laid with care, and long have the strong old trees kept a company with beautiful flowers fair. They sprang forth from tiny seedlings, the young trees that I found long ago. I've tended them, and they have sheltered me, and I've kept them as best I know. My garden has bloomed over and over, and only grown greener with time, and I've been known to share it, and I've kept the secret mine. Once my father found it, and he thought it something less, and sought to strip the soil in the trees and flowers oppress. Strong throws my garden, and it defied the severing axe, for despite the wounds and perils, it withstood the rightful axe. Search through the garden did my father, trying to understand my love, and his understanding grew more and more with time, as the light fell across him from above. Once again I could walk my garden, feeling the touch of grass, letting the flower scents reach for me, and I let myself fall into the embrace of the grass. Cupcake shuddered. At her visions, she had totally missed the fact that she had rhymed grass with itself, a sin of poetry. Her eyes lifted to that to her husband, somehow feeling like she needed to apologize. She was no poetress, that she knew. Suddenly, this all felt so very foolish. So very... His gentle eyes came across hers. His hoof ran across her extended foreleg. The mare pressed on. My garden held me tenderly, and draped its breezes through my hair, thrust its leaves and sounds around me, and treated me like a princess fair. How wonderful the touch of my garden, as its breezes left their traces upon me, and I drifted in the sensations. I felt my garden make me happy. My garden always waits for me,
and is always welcoming in its way. It never refuses or denies me when I seek its comfort at the end of my day. My mane may be tossed and frazzled, and I may have come across my kittens flustered and hot, but my garden had always received me and settled me into my favorite spot. There I have been safe and contented, and after hard days I have sheltered there. The stream, the path, the flowers and trees have kept me in their care. But times have not always been easy, and times have not always been fair, and often my garden has had to protect me, as harsh winds and hard storms in my life tear. The sweet grasses and still waters held me by and by. My garden has always been with me, as my heart stutters and I start to cry. Storms have come into my life over and over, and at times I felt myself fall, but always I found the garden gates open, and my garden has seen me through it all. Once I cried out for a child, to have in my life that singular joy, but the magic that sat deep within me did not answer, and it seemed that with me it wished to toy. My garden kept me close as I whimpered, and the breezes draped themselves through me over and over. My garden whispered its promises to stay near me, and the garden only drew me closer and closer. Oh, my garden stayed with me, and into my life time a great joy. Now upon the sweet grass I can keep close a darling daughter and a beautiful boy. The words drifted away for a moment, and the eyes of two ponies strayed across the little forms that laid across Carrot, their tiny breaths lifting and falling in their slumber. In a few seconds he continued. My garden brought me my children, its seeds welcome on the sacred soil, and in the small trials that followed, it shared in the toil. The storms never abated, and my garden was put into doubt. How could she bear such children? Was the question that swirled all about. They whispered their doubts and suspicions, and the rumors came as gray as clouds that lingered and snuck. I found myself doubted and questioned by old hens that cackled and clucked. Cupcake had begun to about read the next stanza when she felt something brush against her. It was a warm, familiar feel, and Carrot's hoof came to rest on hers, giving her his strength once again. Then, this was the purpose of that poem, to bring into their lives the truth behind the rumors, something that both had ignored for the sake of the other. His hoof went up and down her outstretched foreleg. As he spoke to the truth he had never asked her to speak, swore to him with certainty that he'd never doubted in the first place. My child joined me in the garden, my boy who at once flew into my heart, and I showed him all who could ask me, for my love cannot be picked apart. My garden gave me the colt that I hold dear, its breezes lingered over me, giving me joy that my heart sings, for it is none to doubt, for my garden gives me my love wings. My child joined me in my garden, my daughter of magic and light, and I show her all to who would question that my love has only been true and bright. My garden gave me a daughter to cuddle, and to whom I could sing lullabies by and by. My garden's love washed over me, and its magic filled in my heart into the sky. I've never gone to any other place for such closeness, never felt want to go to some other place. For it is alone in my garden that I feel truly content, and feel my heart race. Carrot's hoof traveled up and down her foreleg slowly, once more drawing out the little sounds of pain that had come with releasing such pent-up words. Now it was time to press on, to finish the story of the garden, to lay open that which had transpired that day. Others have tried to claim my garden, take away my still, quiet space. They've come with covetous bodies, and sought me to replace. Oh, they should like to uproot my garden, to steal it away for their own, to offer themselves up to the touch of grass, and to usurp my garden, and me to the throne. Cupcake looked up as Carrot's head lifted from the pillows. They stared at one another for a moment. Cuppy, he whispered, but soon her small hoof had delicately placed itself over his lips.
But my garden did not reply to the offer. The bubbling stream and bright flowers withdrew, rejected the usurper completely, and waited for the mare it always knew.
She lowered her hoof from his lips, and their eyes danced across those of the spouse. Yes, she had seen all. She had heard the young filly beg her husband to betray her. Yes, she knew Carrot had rejected the Pegasus. These truths flew back and forth between them, each gleaming the meaning from the eyes of the other, knowing the other only as they long embraced could know. Yes, she loved him, and her trust in him was unshaken and as firm as ever, and these lines of the verse were all that ever needed to be said about the matter. Their lips touched together, and she brought her work to its conclusion.
I have a secret garden that I keep apart. It is my happy, quiet place, and it alone holds my heart. There my children are happy, and their laughter rings aloud, and watches over them tenderly, being loving and caring and proud. My husband is my secret garden, and to him I fly. In all my hard times and joys, he is with me whether I laugh or cry. My garden is the father of my children, and through times of strife, I have sheltered him in the warmth of his chest, and loved him, the light of my life. The end.
The final words of the poem drifted out through the rounded nursery. In the small, warm room, Cupcake nervously shuffled through the floor papers, trying to put them back in some semblance of order. She looked down at the messy papers, wrinkled and strewed with eraser marks as they were. Cupcake released a little sigh. She wanted it to be so much more. To be something truly wonderful. She tried to teach herself iambic pentameter, only to give up at a bout of screaming frustration as she admitted, loudly, she had no idea what it meant. She had tried sequains, sonnets, all sorts of poetry. In the end, her little project only became smaller and smaller. This humble thing made up rhyming scheme that couldn't win a Kent elementary school poetry contest, let alone tell her husband how much she loved him, how much she trusted him, how very much he meant to her.
Carrot,
she whispered, clearing her throat.
Carrot, she whispered. Did it make sense? The poem. You are the guardian, don't you know, and, well...
There had been many times in her life when Cupcake had felt individual moments that stretched out into incomprehensible lengths of time. She had felt a few seconds, or even mere instants, stretched out into minutes, hours, or seeming to consume days. As Carrot's lips fell to hers, that moment went on and on, the warmth of his kiss surging through her once more. The moment went on, stretching out onto a single golden cord of happiness as he touched his face to hers, the slow rotation of the carousel lamp dropping patterns of shadows and light across them both. It was perfect, honey bun. It was wonderful. It was absolutely perfect, he whispered, drawing his face across hers, dropping his words into hers. His breath tickled her. His whiskers added the sensation of touch that was drifted across her as the moment went on and on. Thank you so much, Cupcake, he said, drawing her closer to where he and her children lay. It was wonderful. I love you, Sugar Plum.
I love you, Carrot,
she answered, gently lowering herself across his chest, tenderly drawing their children closer to both of them.
Carrot, I love you so much.
The cakes, all four of them laid there upon the pillows, slowly falling farther and farther towards sleep as he lay sheltering the closeness and touch and safety of the others. Long ago, the game of this had been played in this house, and the deep magic of Equestria had drawn itself out across these players. Now that magic lingered over them, as Cupcake's golden moment drew her down onto the sleep, tucked deep into the chest of the stallion she loved most in the world. Her children wrapped in her parents' forelegs. She won another round, and he won it for her, as he always would. Sometime later, Cupcake awoke from her dozing to feel a familiar muzzle drifting across the mall, as he carefully lifted her hoof to welcome her other child back to her home. With that, a disheveled but smiling Piggy Pie nuzzled her way into the embrace of her other family, and the two mares drifted off to sleep. Soon, only small breaths drifted in from the nursing room, and the kerosene lamp went around and round, bathing all within silhouetted stars and moons. Its pattern gently lowered them into sweet dreams, and ushering them into the happy days to follow. The end. This was a great sequel. I'm sorry, I need a moment. It did everything a sequel needed to be. Expanded upon the characters. Made us feel like we were returning to a world that we knew and loved. It gave us familiar feelings of returning to an old story. Those of happiness, sadness, cheer, joy, and warmth. I said before that a good romance story should make us want to root for the characters. Should make us feel a close connection to the characters, and that's what this first story did. The second keeps it up, reminding us all that romance and relationships, the drama, and the feels do not end when the couple gets together. They don't end when they say I do. They keep going. And they long last and they long way into the night. One of the things I loved about the original was that we did see different types of relationships, like old and young, siblings and parents, all wrapped up in this nice little bow. This story, we saw just what Cup and Carrot meant to each other. That Cupcake shows that, yeah, she still has her fears. She still gets worried. And sometimes Carrot gets nervous for her. This is normal for a relationship. But we see the true strength of his character. We see that there's a sexy thing out there. But does he falter? No. He stays true to who he is, to his wife, to the love of his life. He could want no other. And Cupcake is the same way. She loves Carrot and would never abandon him. But there's more to it in this simple story. A Cupcake's poem was... I'm sorry to admit, I was crying throughout. Was proof of that. A good relationship is all about supporting one another. About understanding what each other wants, what each other needs, and building upon that. We see this in the subtle motions of Carrot going, "Hun," and looking up at her, wondering if she's okay, and wanting to make sure she's fine. We see that in how Cupcake sometimes feels insecure, and how Carrot washes away those insecurities. The sexiness of their lovemaking comes not from the avid descriptions of the character's length of his dick or the size of Cup's tits. They come from the heart. They come from the emotions to feel. We see how close they are and how affectionate they can be. We understand that there's probably problems in their relationship. Of course there is. But we also see the beauty of what it means to fall in love. And to be truly in love with one another and to care for about each other. To be so close to one another like this. The interactions with Pound and Pumpkin and the two families is just so adorable. Wishing Well and Cheesecake, through just their small appearance, remind us of the beauty of long-lasting friendships, of how they can stay together through good times and bad, and through the loss of your significant other. And seeing the cute little families together just brings a smile to my heart. And seeing little Pound fly like that is just simply adorable. The grammar, the pacing, all of it. It's just a beautiful thing. This is just another part of my fifth favorite fanfic of all time. A Sweet Taste of Cake by The Descendant. The first story I ever read on this channel. And that's it. That was my first story. Since 2013, I have been listening to a whole bunch of audio stories, be they from the Living Library Players, Oheb Scribbler, Fizzle Pony, Big Ash Random Vids, and others. And since then, I've become enamored of how many stories everybody's been reading. And a lot of times, they're my favorite fanfics. I even found a site called audiobooks.com that has this. And of course, I, being the fan of such stories, decided, you know what? I want to hear them. So I've been listening to them, and of course, being a fan of a lot of these authors, I did submit a lot of requests. Sometimes it was for my own work, but what can I say? I do like getting my stuff out there, like any of you, because I am an author. But I also knew that these readers are busy. They get millions of requests, or thousands. They don't have time to always get to every single one, and sometimes they can't be bothered to touch a request from little old me. I mean, I'm just one fan in about 1,000 worth of these. So, I decided, I've got a headset. I could download Audacity. Why not? It might even be fun. So in April, I decided to run a test with one of my other favorite fanfics, Getting Back on Her Hopes, the last chapter, because I also know that sometimes audiobook guys lose patience with a project, feel like they don't want to do it anymore, or sometimes just simply forget. And I noticed that the Getting Back on Your Hopes series was not completely done. So I made a little private recording of it, wrapped it up, just to see if I could enjoy hearing myself read these. If I could actually like hearing my own voice go through the different voices, the different emotions. And you know what? It was fun. I had a blast doing it, and I liked hearing my own voice. Granted, looking back on it now, the audio's crappy due to my old Holtz headset, and I left in too many mistakes. But back then, it was good. It was good enough. So, on this date, 2014, I decided, you know what? I'm going to make one out of my fifth favorite fanfic of all time, A Sweet Taste of Cake. I gathered my headset, my Audacity, Lappy, and did it. Wrapped it up and released it. And that was the start of it all. For almost a whole year since, I've done many stories. I have over 200 videos that I am now proud of, which is more than I could say for what my old videos were back on how the channel used to look like. This channel used to to be fair, technically this channel came out in 2007 when I got my first laptop, Lappy Mark 1. But it had a crappy MST and it wasn't really well made. You couldn't hardly see the video footage, and those videos are gone now. I deleted them out of it because I wanted this channel to be focused solely on the live reads. But I think it is here that it truly began. 200 and something videos. At least, I guess, 10 or 14 story long fix read, multiple one-shots, several different Fandom Fridays, and 47 subscribers richer. Was I expecting this? No. If I want to be perfectly honest, no. Heck, Fandom Fridays didn't turn out as I expected. I was kind of hoping other people would submit other fanfics for Fandom Fridays to do, but I've been enjoying what I've been doing. Hunting out, searching, finding fanfics on my own that I want to read or highlight. It's been a blast because I've been encountering so many writing styles and other authors so far that it's all become, well, quite pleasant. I never was expecting 47 subscribers, which is 40 more than I had earlier. I never was expecting all that. But you know what? I'm glad it did. I'm glad I do have all of you guys. I'm glad to have the watchers I do get and the viewers that come in. You guys make it all worthwhile. And I would hug you if I could. But instead, I'll just hug my little Umbreon plushie and just pretend that it's all of you guys. Bling! You guys are all awesome. Each and every one of you that listens to this or will listen to it in the future. Thank you. I may not have Ilya Lenov's awesome Morgan Freeman voice and do past tense. I may not be Scorch's writer and sound like the awesomeness that is Ron Perlman. I may not be as popular or as great as Physical Pony or Ohab. But you know what? I'm okay with that. There was a line in the song Welcome to the Show where Sunset sings, I'm not here for I'm not singing for popularity. And that's true for me. I'm not here for popularity. I don't care if my videos get 1 view or 1,000. I'm here for 2 reasons. Reason number 1, I'm here for all of you. Every single one of you. I'm here to entertain you guys. I'm here to make you happy. if just one of you smiled, laughed, cried, got angry, sad, cheered, roared with laughter, or even complained about a villain, then you know what? I've done my job. Because I know I've entertained you. I've entertained all of you. I've made you happy. And that is where I'm most at home. Writing a fic that will entertain people who come by and read it. Or doing a live read that will make people laugh or jump for joy. Or just make people cry. That's what I live for. I live to entertain. And I'm grateful that you guys let me do that. Second, I'm also here, as I've said in a video not too long ago, that I am here to highlight the fanfics that don't always get a live read. People don't always go for the other fics. People sometimes go, almost everybody will do a Fallout Equestria, or will do Past Sins, or do a Grimdark fic. I didn't want to do that. And I still technically don't. I want to go and do the fics that very few people actually notice. I want to do the stories that people don't always read. Like, say, stuff like Sweet Taste of Cake, or Elements of Harmony, Save Your Worlds, or what have you. I want to highlight those stories. Because I do want to do something that some of the bigger names guys out there like Bennett or Mazzucco do. I want to show that not all fanfics are bad Mary Sues, or horrible OCs, or badly done lemons, or rape fics, or grim dark fics, or badly done horrible shipping. No. I want to show that there's more to the world than that. How much fun fanfics can be. How enjoyable to read, or how exciting they can get. How much fun you can have by reading them. Fellow riffer Arcadus once said that when a fanfic is bad, it's mockable. When a fanfic is great, it's truly extraordinary. Tastes may vary for what is a great fic and what's not, but the principle is still there. That there could be awesome fics and there could be bad ones. Personally, I prefer highlighting all the great ones out there. All the ones that can give you great emotions. That's what I'm here for. And you know what's the most valuable to me over seeing somebody like, say, Mike and get angry over my live read of one of his stuff where I riff it? It's this. I'm honored that you've chosen to read my fic. I'm so happy. I was crying for this. Now I know what they meant, tears of contentment. It's those words. Those words right there. Of people saying how happy they are to have their stuff read. Of how honored they feel, or how excited they are, or how awesome it is. It's those words that I look for most. Because to me, those words of happiness, of people being happy that I'm reading their stuff for them, and people being excited that I'm bringing their stories to life or giving them a read, is worth to me than any bad fic I've ever riffed. It's worth more to me than 1,000 Fallen Dooms, than 100 Mike and Hate fics yelling at me going, "You don't understand! You're an idiot for doing this! You are a cretin!" That's what's most important to me. Is the smile and the excitement that somebody gets from the knowledge that I'm going to read them tonight. That's what I'm here for. And I want to thank you all of you, the people who listen and the people who don't, for sticking with me for this year. Mike, who wrote a couple of bad fanfics, who wrote a certain bad fanfic that I riffed on here, recently told me that people like me, who riff occasionally, would always get what I deserve. Oh yeah. I'm getting what I deserve. As a matter of fact, I know what I'm getting deserved. I'm getting all of you guys. I'm getting to spend time with and in one of the more kinder, caring, creative, positive, and happier fandoms that I ever been a part of. A fandom that I am proud to call my own and to wear it on my shirt. To show it off that, yes, I'm proud to be a brony. I get to read fics from several other great fandoms, and sometimes not so great. But I'm still excited and proud to be here amongst the brony community. One that has welcomed me and so many others. One that has accepted all of us, and one that is so creative. One that inspires me to do this. And it's because of writers like you guys. Of writers and people like RK Striker, The Descendant, Kaplan. All of you guys help to make this possible. Because you guys are awesome. And I know it's most of us. There's always going to be that little minority, but it's a minority, I found out. Because most of the time, it's mostly also awesome of you guys. So yeah, I'm getting what I deserve. I'm getting smiles, and I'm getting to spend time with an awesome fandom. With a great fandom. A terrific and welcoming fandom like you. Don't ever lose that. And don't ever forget that. I want to thank you guys. So, here's to another year of doing these reads. Here's to another year. No. Let me fix that. Because a year was a test I might be finishing up one day. No. I already set my retirement date. When I'm 45. By then I might have everything done. But no. I'm a part of several different fandoms and I haven't left a single one. I might dwindle a little bit and hold back, but I'll always come back here. No. Not to another here. Here's to several more years. Here's to several more anniversaries. Here's to seeing you guys again. Here's to reading a whole lot more. And here's to more fanfics of ponies being heroes, of adventures far and wide, of characters meeting across dimensions, of starships and space stations, of Pokemon and animals, of friendships and loves. Here's to adventure, here's to action, and here's to heartwarming. Here's to more years of doing this, of being with you guys. I've been signing off with I'll see you next time, and I've realized why. It's in honor of one of my favorite shows, Reading Rainbow, because I really like listening to the reads of those. And of course, one final thank you for letting me share these fics with you, to show the awesomeness of so many of these stories, and especially of doing something like the Luniverse, and doing a whole series, and letting you guys hear all of my awesome voice, all my weird and fun little voices. From stuff like Turksy, Raindrops, Lyra,
Cheerily.
Cartop, Ditsy, to awesome villains like Dirk, Discord, Nightmare Moon,
Chrysalis.
or even Loki. Thank you guys. You know, I've noticed I've been sending you off with I'll see you next time lately. And that's mainly because of Reading Rainbow, one of my all-time favorite shows. I just loved listening to the readings of that so much that I figured this was a good way to do it. So, I'll see you next time.